Hi, everyone. Dale Pinkert here at TradeGate Hub, and I am joined by Edwin Dorsey. Um, Edwin, thank you so much for taking time out of short, telling people what to short or get out of. And what a watchman you've turned out to be in a short period of time. It's a very valuable service. I'm curious, because you told me before we got on the air, how you ended up starting this. Was it a plan when you were in school? When was a seed planted to be out there to make sure that people weren't being scammed or things weren't being misrepresented and they lose their hard-earned money on something that the regulators miss?
Dale, thanks so much for having me on your podcast.
Oh, it's great to have
Um,
you.
I've been passionate about stocks from a really young age. Like second grade, I was very
Oh
interested
my
in the stock
God.
market and started playing around.
Was
Now, the
that because of
transition
your
to the
family? Your family?
yeah, with my family, or my grandmother put some money in an E-Trade account and let me play around with it. And so I had an interest from stocks from a young age. But my
Okay.
transition to the short side and more of like investigative research
Yeah.
happened freshman year of college, where by coincidence, I got introduced to two of the best short sellers in my view. One was Mark Cahodes, who used to run a short only hedge fund and now is kind of just prolific tweeter and taking down bad guys. And the other person I was introduced to was Jim Carruthers, who ran $1 billion short only fund called Sophos, who I interned for on and off all 4 years of college. And having those two
Wow.
like greats of the short world kind of pulls you in that direction. So I joke, if two of my early mentors were micro cap investors, I'd be here talking about micro caps. If two of my early mentors were in like private equity, maybe I would have drifted that way. But it just so happened two early people I met were great short sellers, and they kind of showed me the ropes. They showed me that like activist short sellers can make a difference. You can actually have like a positive impact on society rather than
Yeah.
maybe a lot of finance is more paper trading. It's you can actually do something substantive. And then I interned at Sophos all 4 years. Presumably I'd go work for them, but they were in the process of winding down. So I needed to figure out what I would do next. And from my experience, writing online is a great way to meet people and like creates a
Yeah.
lot of luck. So I thought I'm going to start this newsletter, which I did March 2020, my senior year of college. And then
Wow.
the pandemic hit, so I get more time to invest in the newsletter. And it became really popular really fast. And 6 months later, I started charging for it. And then right away, like a lot of people paid and it became my full-time job. And basically, all I've done for the last 3 years is write the Bear Cave newsletter. It almost has 50,000 readers now. And I like to joke my entire job is sending 6 emails a month to the people who read the newsletter.
Yeah, well, it's because of everything's content now. But if the content wasn't valuable, people won't pay. I mean, we're in a world where most people want things in our industry for free. What do you think of crude here, Dale? I go, well, when you go to the doctor, does he give you free medical advice? So there's not the same, respect for the knowledge that we share with the public. I'd like your rabbit's foot, Edwin, because how fortunate for you to meet those two guys. How did you arrange it? Because, sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, that's very true. So I think I've been, a decent networker, for lack of a better word, all my life. Mark Cahodes there was a hedge fund manager I was talking to in high school who introduced me to his son's roommate who was interested in the short world, who then introduced me to Mark Cahodes. And I remember I just got Mark's phone number and I called him and he's like, "Who are you? I don't know who you are." And he hangs up. And then I call him again and try to ask him more questions. And he invites me to his chicken farm in Northern California. And as a college freshman, I take this like hour-long Uber, an expensive Uber, to this guy's chicken farm. And he just takes
Good
a lot of time
investment.
with me and shows me the ropes and like teaches me a lot. So
Okay.
that was a huge luck thing. And then the other thing I was doing a little in high school is I just had a blog where I talk about stocks anonymously on Seeking Alpha. And
Okay.
people at Carruthers hedge fund were reading the blog, but they didn't know who I was. They didn't know, but I said I was in Stanford, California, which was close to their offices. So
Right.
they were like, oh, we assume this guy's a professor or something. So they invite me to lunch, and lo and behold, this 18-year-old, 17-year-old kid walks in. I think they were just kind of surprised and
Did
blown
they
away.
ask, where's your father, son, or what?
They were confused for a second.
All right.
So that and just in general, though, what I found is writing online or being active on Twitter and having like a mature social media or internet presence is really, really good at creating luck and creating spontaneity. It's kind of crazy the amount of people I've met just writing a newsletter, or people who like it.
Is
And
is Twitter still your most effective platform in social media, or has that been changing for you?
for a long time, Dale, it was, and I think you'd find most newsletter authors would say Twitter is the dominant platform for getting new
Right.
email subscribers, getting people to sign up. Now, under Elon Musk, he's been feuding with Substack, for whatever reason. So you can't really tweet Substack links without the tweets getting like
Oh,
demoted.
that's right.
So that's actually like
He might
been
give you a
little bit.
red check too.
Yeah, they might take
Huh?
away the check marker. Heard me.
Or
So
give you a bad color, like red
yeah.
instead of green. Anyway, I know it's crazy.
Yeah, but Twitter, podcast appearances, as I try to go on every podcast I can, because
Yeah.
sometimes that gets a lot of new signups. Just doing, once it gets big, I think just doing a good job with every email you send out will
Yeah.
lead to it being forwarded around and a lot of new subscribers, getting media attention. Twice a month, I'll produce mini deep dive investigations on companies I believe are misleading investors or harming customers.
Yeah.
Sometimes those will be picked up on Bloomberg, Benzinga, Seeking Alpha, wherever, and that will get a lot of traction and new signups. And so just consistently
Yeah.
doing
You're an
the work.
investigative reporter. You're a journalist, Edwin.
Precisely, Dale. I like to say what I do is like a close cousin to, being just an independent investigative reporter. My
Yeah.
background, like I don't short or bet against any of the companies I
I
write
noticed
about.
that. I noticed that. Is that because you'd probably run afoul of regulators? They'd be looking at you if you were taking positions in some of the companies that you came out with a negative report, and think that you might be front running your followers. And people have done that, haven't they?
Well, that's very common for an activist short seller to say, oh, I'm publishing on a big company, publish a big report on a company they expect to fall while having a position. So that alone, I don't think necessarily runs afoul of any regulation, particularly if it's disclosed. Now, like the SEC, I think is mainly a disclosure agency, where you need to have clear disclosures on your positioning and that you might be covering the day of or day after your report, stuff like that. I've always, that's how it starts. But then with a lot of activist short sellers, well, if you're going to take a big short position, maybe you should buy puts. And if you're buying puts, maybe you should release it on option expiration day. And if you're going to do that, maybe you should partner with the fund who also takes a position and rebate some of your profits. Like it gets.
Do you know what Chanos does? Do you know what Jim Chanos does?
I can't speak to Jim Chanos. I don't think he's in that business whatsoever.
Okay.
He seems to be like more private, or like occasionally talk about his positions, but it's more just like, the typical activist short sellers are doing that. But my model, I care less about moving stocks. I'm good at the early stages of research, but I'm very document based. I don't want to like hire private investigators, talk to 50 ex-employees. That's like a little bit above my pay grade and not really what I do. I'm very read the filings, can file FOIA requests, read everything you can in the public domain, track a lot of board members and bad actors. And when you do that 10 hours a day, every day, you're going to be finding stuff that I think most people are missing. So while Wall Street and most analysts are very quantitative, focusing on the numbers, I'm very qualitative, digging around there. And, twice a month will ideally produce a good article, a good investigation for readers of the Bear Cave newsletter.
Okay, so what was the light bulb that went off when you were looking at SVB?
So I think I tweeted a little bit about Silicon Valley Bank, but that was more just other accounts I follow were looking at Silicon Valley Bank. What I've done a lot with the banks that have failed is I talked a lot about Silvergate Bank and Signature Bank. They were two crypto banks that later failed alongside Silicon Valley Bank. And for them, the big issue is they would do a lot of business with crypto firms. So believe it or not, crypto firms have a lot of cash, stable coins have a lot of cash, and it's tough for them to find banking partners. But these two banks, Silvergate and Signature Bank, will aggressively bank the crypto industry. And because crypto companies didn't have many places to put their cash or put their deposits, they could deposit them with Silvergate and Signature, and they would get zero interest whatsoever. So these deposits from crypto firms were extremely lucrative for Silvergate and Signature, and then they'd loan money like any bank, take these deposits and loan it out. What I think investors and the companies themselves didn't realize is these deposits are very fickle and completely correlated. So if like Silvergate, all your deposits are coming from crypto firms and FTX fails and there's going to be a drought in the crypto industry, all your depositors are going to flee very, very, very quickly. And
so the bear market in Bitcoin from the $60,000 range, breaking all the way down to what 15 was the nail in the coffin, because it sure didn't happen early. This was pretty ongoing, wasn't it? Because of their books and that they were long bonds from the lowest rates since the Civil War, and didn't have good risk management with their books.
So that's more of like Silicon Valley Bank, maybe First Republic, which are companies I haven't written about. For the crypto banks like Signature Bank and Silvergate, that bank that failed, it wasn't so much that. It was very much a deposit story where you take tons of deposits from crypto firms, loan those deposits out, but didn't expect them to be all outflowing at the same time. There was also a big risk with these banks, Signature and Silvergate, that they were facilitating a lot of money laundering on behalf of crypto firms, which is part of the reason regulators might have not viewed them too favorably. Some companies, some smaller banks like Provident Bank, loaned money to Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin related entities that all have like done poorly and failed, and the recovery there isn't good. So there's some banks that have like, especially smaller ones, that have taken like losses tangential to Bitcoin, if not directly related to Bitcoin. There's some banks like Metropolitan Bank that played a role in issuing credit cards, like affiliated credit cards on behalf of crypto companies. And those are like lucrative revenue fee streams, but it's not really sustainable and probably not a really honest way to make money. So those were the types of banks I was focusing a lot on. Now, some people came to me early on saying you should be writing about Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic and whatever. And I kind of ignored them because I'm not, super great at analyzing banks. And I regret that. But Bill Martin, Raging Capital, deserves a lot of credit for being one of the first on Silicon Valley.
It might be a good time to learn, because there's a cockroach theory. If their books were wrong and they took this type of capital hit from being long bonds during the most vicious bear market in my lifetime, and you can see the color of my hair, I've seen some cycles, right? That there are pension funds that bought bonds when the 10-year was 2% or lower, and they're upside down. It's not going to be, I think it's pretty much throughout the whole financial industry that people just said, well, maybe they'll come back and Powell will stop. And they're still hoping.
Yeah.
So the leverage in the system right now, because of these bad bets, wasn't cured with the bailout. What do you think?
I don't know if I'd be like the perfect person to comment on that. I think, there was one person who released a report on US Bank Corp. Now, I think the fifth largest bank in the US by customer deposits, and saying they're going to have a lot of problems too. So my guess is it's not every bank. It's going to be isolated to a few banks that play these games. And it's really interesting how, now more than ever, depositors can be very fleeting. Like we saw with Silicon Valley Bank, everybody moved all their money out within just one day. And I think the advent of electronic banking and social media will definitely make bank runs and the risks of bank runs a lot more, powerful for some of these troubled banks.
Yeah,
but
people
I'm
can't
not
run.
Exactly sure.
Yeah, that's not your bailiwick. But there are, there are a lot of pension funds that did the same thing. And you
Yeah.
can't run from your pension fund. You're just hoping that they could continue to keep it solvent and pay you. So let's get to what's on your radar now.
Absolutely. So what I like to say with the bear cave is I primarily focus on companies that are misleading investors or harming customers. Most typically, it's a company $1 to $10 billion market cap, US listed, typically in the tech or consumer industry. One company that I wrote about recently is Planet Fitness. And Planet Fitness, I wrote about them in January in my newsletter. They're, a low-cost gym operator, $10 a month. Anyone can join, a few thousand locations across the US, franchise-based with 80 or so franchise groups. And their main issue is they represent themselves as a gym, but I think they're actually a massive illegal billing operation. And this is what I mean. People will go to Planet Fitness, sign up on the 1st of January, it's your New Year's resolution, get fit. You don't go for a while, and then you want to cancel. So they have a huge proportion of their membership base, more than any other gym, that wants to cancel or is trying to cancel. And the issue with Planet Fitness is they make it nearly impossible to cancel. You can sign up anyway, but you can't cancel over the phone, online, or in you can't cancel on their website or over email. To cancel a Planet Fitness gym membership, you need to go in person to the gym you signed up at, or you need to send a letter. And that's their policy. And then when you dig around, like I did, and file FOIA requests with state regulators for consumer complaints, you'll often find that even though their policy on cancellation is egregious, they don't even follow their policy. So people will go in to cancel their gym membership and be told, the manager's not here today and he handles the cancellation. So this is our payment processing day. You need to come back tomorrow. Or, you sent letters, but we can't find any letters. We don't have any evidence you sent them. You sent a certified letter, but it didn't arrive. So end this stream of excuses just to not cancel these subscriptions, these gym memberships. And the other issue with Planet Fitness is because they're playing a lot of games and being really aggressive here, is most consumers, if they feel they're being wrongly charged, would file a credit card dispute. And most of the time consumers win those. With Planet Fitness, is they don't even allow you to sign up with credit cards. They only allow generally debit cards, which means you have no dispute mechanism. So you have millions of generally low income, unsophisticated consumers signing up for Planet Fitness to make their life better, and then being stuck in these subscriptions they simply cannot cancel. And if it's just $10 a month, maybe you don't notice it, maybe it goes on, maybe you just get frustrated and let it go. There's people spending months or years of their life just trying to cancel Planet Fitness memberships. And my view is, even though this makes the numbers look good in the short run, in the long term, it always ends up biting you. Their brand is being diminished because of it. Over time, I do think debit cards are becoming easier to dispute, and it's going to be easier to put an end to these illegal recurring charges. One of the top priorities for the Biden administration is combating junk fees and combating tough to cancel subscriptions. I think Planet Fitness is going to be hurt by this, and I don't think it's going to be a 5 or 10% hit. I think, if ballpark here, 30% of your customer base doesn't know they're being charged, believe they cancel, or is actively trying to cancel, if you actually follow through on that, 30% of your revenues go away. All your franchisees become unprofitable. This would be devastating to their business. And gyms, by the way, are not great businesses to begin with. There's low barriers to entry. Anybody can open up a gym. I think they could be in a lot of trouble in the long run.
And how did you come across this story? Through someone you knew, or your own? They wouldn't let you cancel, Edwin?
That's I came across it on Twitter and just YouTube, and people like to be fancy and come up with ideas in really fancy ways. I'm a Twitter addict. I think there's a lot of value there. What accounts to follow. I follow a lot of consumer protection YouTube channels, and those are really great.
I've generated 1,000 interviews off Twitter in the last 8 years. The majority of my guests, and like you. I mean, it's a great place to do a lot of different things. So I'm glad our paths crossed. What else is on the docket for you?
So, my number one priority is always growing the newsletter. That's kind of it. I've always thought of like getting into YouTube and starting a YouTube channel. If I write an article on a company like
Yeah.
Planet Fitness that I believe is harming customers, maybe take that to another level. I'm looking at a lot of BDCs right now. We talk about Silicon Valley Bank. They weren't the only bank lending money to startups. I wrote on one recently, Hercules Capital, that
Okay.
loaned a lot of money to like tech startups and biotech startups and stuff like that. And I think maybe some of these other BDCs might have troubled loan books. I don't know. I'm looking at a lot of things at any point in time, mainly in the consumer tech space, $1 to $10 billion market caps. But yeah.
Okay. Well, it was really great meeting you. I just want to at least share my screen and show people what you have here, and how they could go ahead and get to meet you. Here's the Bear Cave. And I'm going to subscribe right here with Edwin.
Oh, thank you, Dale. Thank you.
I know this is only the free stuff, but I'm going to look at it, and I'm telling you, the testimonials for Edwin are unbelievable. Okay, I mean, people are saying, he saved my butt. You need to have him on your side, and all of this. I mean, one after another. What a great, rewarding feeling to know that your help is saving people heartache.
Yeah. And
I
Mark,
admire you. I admire
sorry.
you. I admire you
Thank you, Dale. Thank you. You're really warming my heart.
because that's what I try to do in trading, is help people avoid the landmines that I stepped on.
Yeah.
And, so you're out there making sure that you're doing due diligence, because most people are lazy, aren't they, Edwin?
Most people, I don't think, know how to properly research stocks. Like, it's
All
okay
right.
to be lazy in the markets. If you just index and you say,
Yeah.
I'm going to be lazy, that's actually
Well,
great.
I mean, about doing due diligence and their homework and really, going through. I mean, I know guys that do mining stocks. I mean, they're all over, the fundamentals of the company before they don't just buy it because they like gold.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? And most jockey public doesn't have the time to do that kind of research. So, congratulations on your ascent and your mission, and appreciate you giving some time to us and talking to us today. And I'll be keeping an eye on you too, Edwin.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dale. I really enjoyed coming on.
And go ahead with that YouTube channel.
Thank you. I'll let you know.
All right, buddy. So that's a wrap, everyone. You could follow Edwin. Either go to his Substack address here, the Bear Cave on Substack, or what a great handle, at Stock Jabber, Jabber. And I wouldn't want to get jabbed by Edwin. He's too much younger than me. All right, everyone.